Starfield, Bethesda's spacefaring RPG, is reportedly charting a new course, and it's one that PlayStation fans have been waiting for. After over a year of silence and speculation around Bethesda Game Studios, it looks like Starfield might finally be making the jump over to PlayStation 5. Not just that, if these rumors are to be believed, then it's also bringing a second major expansion and some long overdue quality of life improvements with it. So what's going on behind the scenes at Bethesda Game Studios and Xbox, and what does it all mean for the future of Starfield? Let's go over everything we know and break it all down. But before we get into it, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the latest Starfield news. And if you're interested, consider becoming a member on the channel for early access on every video, members only content, your name in the credits, the ability to write in and have your comments featured, and access to the Discord community. First things first here, don't expect to play Starfield on your PlayStation 5 in 2025 unfortunately. According to a new report from MP First, Microsoft is holding off on the PlayStation release of Starfield until spring 2026. That means sometime between mid-March and mid-June next year. And why the delay, we're probably all asking? Well, there's no one simple answer to this question of course, but the biggest factor appears to be the lukewarm response and release to Starfield's first expansion, Shattered Space, that released back in September of 2024. Despite Bethesda's older reputation for hit expansions like Far Harbor for Fallout 4, Dragonborn for Skyrim, and the Shivering Isles DLC for Oblivion, this one DLC for Starfield didn't quite land the way they had hoped. So instead of rushing a PlayStation 5 version out the door for Starfield, Microsoft and Bethesda are opting for a more calculated approach this time around, pairing the release with what hopefully will amount to a stronger expansion and hopefully reignite excitement around the game. But Bethesda needs to be on their A game for this next expansion of course. If this is another mid-release like Shattered Space, then the PlayStation 5 version has a strong chance of falling flat upon release, and Xbox and PC fans probably won't return to the game. Starfield has a peak concurrent player count of around 5,000 players in the last 24 hours as I record this, so the game really does need a second breath of life. Of course, these Steam numbers are only part of the picture, and we really don't know how many players are currently on Xbox or the Game Pass platform. On a more positive note for the game though, the fan-made creation called Watchtower from Kingath Creations, which is essentially a DLC at this point, does appear to have some success, with over 1.4 million plays and 215,000 unique views on the creations menu. This of course could be seen as a good sign for the game, and shows that there is still some life for good content, albeit from a fan-made expansion and not official BGS content. But at this point, can Bethesda Game Studios in their second expansion even outdo the amazing fan-made content? Maybe not, but of course only time will tell. Are you excited for a second Starfield expansion to possibly launch alongside the game's PlayStation 5 version in 2026? Let me know your thoughts on all of this down in the comments. When Shattered Space first dropped back in late 2024, expectations were sky high for it. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for the reviews to start rolling in, and many of them were less than kind to this expansion. Steam user ratings skewed negative, and as of right now, all reviews currently show mostly negative on the platform with only 30% approval, and critics went on to point out the expansion's lack of meaningful space content despite the name promising just that. Currently over on Metacritic, the critic review sits at about a 62. IGN's review probably summed it up best here when they said there wasn't much added for spacefarers and the content felt thin in Shattered Space. Sure, you could finally get a Varun ship without stealing one, but that wasn't enough for players who wanted a meaty new experience to sink their teeth into. In a Mr. Matty Plays interview last year, it was revealed that Bethesda had originally aimed to deliver story expansions on an annual basis, but that plan may have shifted in the past several months after the less than enthusiastic reaction to Shattered Space. Now, Bethesda Game Studios seems to be taking their time with this second expansion, hopefully to deliver something bigger, better, and more polished than the first time around. Details are scarce at the moment of course, but the second Starfield expansion is expected to launch across all platforms alongside the PS5 version in spring 2026 if these rumors are to be believed of course. Officially, we don't have a title, theme, or even a teaser yet for this next expansion, but the fact that Bethesda is still working on post-launch content for Starfield shows they haven't given up on the game just yet. Phil Spencer even touched on this topic in a recent interview where he mentioned talking with Todd Howard of Bethesda Game Studios about balancing feature updates and expansion content for Starfield and their other games. It seems like they're trying to learn from the feedback and rethink how Starfield evolves going forward. But if they got the right message here or not is a different story entirely. Instead of rethinking when and where to actually release new content, let's please focus on actually getting out more good quality content first. But what we do know as of right now though, at least according to rumors, is that there was a leaked trademark filing for the term Starborn, possibly hinting at the name of this next expansion. If you played through the main story of Starfield, you will definitely know what this term means. It's possible that a DLC called Starborn for this game could somehow build off the main storyline and lore of the Starfield universe, and I think a DLC going further into that aspect of the game could be really interesting, if they do it right of course. I know some probably disagree with me, but I personally thought Starfield had a very interesting main storyline, and what Starborn is referring to leads heavily into the game's main story of course. So if you can give me more of what made the game interesting to me at least in the first place, then that could be some really exciting content to play through. Whether Starfield's second expansion is a course correction or a total reinvention remains to be seen at this point in time of course, but it will be crucial for re-establishing trust with players and maybe even drawing in a new audience over on PlayStation. Alongside the expansion and PS5 version release for Starfield, the report also mentions that Bethesda is currently working on various quality of life updates for the game. That's music to the ears of Starfield fans who have stuck with the game since launch through its ups and downs. These quality of life updates could range from improved UI and inventory management to performance boost and expanded mod support for the game. Of course, nothing's been officially confirmed by Bethesda just yet, but bundling improvements with a major release like the PS5 launch could make a lot of sense here, and would also go a long way in showing that Bethesda Game Studios is still committed to refining the experience of Starfield. It brings to mind the 2.0 release for Cyberpunk 2077 and all the amazing features that update brought to the game. The Phantom Liberty expansion and 2.0 update was the culmination of the official comeback and redemption arc of Cyberpunk 2077. Now, if Bethesda is even capable of that sort of redemption arc is another story entirely. I kind of doubt it at this point in time with how weak Shattered Space was, but maybe they will get the message and surprise us all with this new DLC. Now, before you get your hopes up for a surprise announcement at Gamescom this month, pump the brakes. MP first made it clear that there are no current plans to shadow drop the PS5 version of Starfield like they did with the Oblivion Remastered earlier this year. Instead, Bethesda seems to be playing the long game with their future content. A more likely reveal window could be the Game Awards in December or even a standalone event announcement in early 2026. So yeah, as of right now, patience is definitely the name of the game for future Starfield content. It's been a rough road of course at this point for Starfield fans who really want more content for this game, but Bethesda Game Studios will probably benefit from not showing off the next expansion until they are about ready to release it to the public. Let's take a step back for a moment. Starfield launched in September of 2023 with massive expectations. It was Bethesda's first new IP in over 2 decades at that point, and a chance to create the next big RPG universe from them. And to be fair, it wasn't a total flop. Actually, it was probably far from it. The game reached over 15 million players, thanks in part to Game Pass of course. But the shine and excitement around this game wore off quicker than expected for the studio. Compared to the long legs of Skyrim and Fallout 4, Starfield struggled to maintain the same sort of momentum in their player counts. In fact, the player counts dropped fairly quickly and the buzz around it faded not long after it released. And then of course came the Shattered Space DLC, which didn't do much to actually turn things around for them. All of this of course raised big questions around the game. Would Bethesda quietly move on from Starfield and focus entirely on their next project, The Elder Scrolls 6? Apparently not, at least not yet. Instead, they're giving Starfield one more major push. Here's why this PS5 launch matters so much for Starfield. For starters, it opens the door to millions of players who've never touched the game at this point. Not everyone of course owns an Xbox or a gaming PC, and Bethesda Game Studios games have historically had a huge following on PlayStation platforms. Microsoft's multi-platform strategy has already seen titles like Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and even Forza Horizon 5 have great success while landing over on PlayStation 5. So Starfield making the jump isn't just a surprise, it's the next logical step for them. But it's not just about sales. This is a second chance to reintroduce Starfield with fresh content and polish. Hopefully it's good and we can think of it as Starfield 2.0, a relaunch that could finally give the game the legacy Bethesda hoped for when they first revealed the game. But of course, for this to be the case, and for Starfield to have a huge redemption arc, Bethesda needs to deliver a strong DLC. In fact, to make a huge impact like they're expecting, this expansion might have to be even better than the base game. It's a huge task of course, and hopefully they can pull it off. Let's be honest, release windows are very slippery at this point in time, especially in the current climate for the gaming industry. Just because sources say spring 2026 as of now, doesn't guarantee that's when it'll actually release. MP First is a solid outlet with a decent track record for this kind of news, but even they emphasize that things are always changing behind the scenes, especially in this current age of the gaming industry. Still, pairing the PS5 release with the second expansion is definitely a smart marketing move, and probably what Bethesda needs to do to rebuild interest and excitement around Starfield. Until we get official confirmation though, consider everything tentative. This PS5 port is also part of a much larger story, Xbox's evolving publishing strategy. Just a few years ago, Microsoft was fighting tooth tooth and nail to keep its biggest games off of PlayStation consoles. Now, Xbox has become one of the biggest publishers on PlayStation platforms, period. Gears of War Reloaded is dropping on PlayStation 5 this August. There are also reports of Gears of War E-Day and State of Decay 3 coming over to Sony consoles when they eventually release. Xbox's walled garden is officially being dismantled, and Starfield crossing over is one of the most symbolic moves yet. The only thing bigger they could possibly do at this point in time is release Halo on PlayStation consoles, and we're probably not too far off of that actually happening in the future. Can Starfield actually win people over again? That's of course the million-dollar question. Can Starfield win back players or win over a new audience? After a bumpy start and mediocre first expansion, it's hard to believe at this point in time. Honestly, it really does depend on what Expansion 2 delivers for this game and how far Bethesda goes with its improvements. If the team nails the content this time around, smooths out the gameplay experience, and markets the PS5 release effectively, this is definitely their shot. It won't be easy, but Bethesda has pulled off comeback stories before. Fallout 76, despite its disastrous launch, has become a solid and surprisingly beloved live service game in the community. Starfield might be able to follow a similar path here, if given the right attention and resources. At the end of the day, Starfield coming over to PlayStation 5 feels inevitable, and at this point, kind of long overdue. With the second expansion on the way and a relaunch window targeting for spring 2026 according to the rumors, this is Bethesda's opportunity to make things right and breathe new life into the galaxy they've built. Whether you've been holding out for a PS5 version of Starfield or waiting for the game to finally hit its stride, it looks like the second chance might be coming very soon. Let's just hope it's well worth the wait. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the latest Starfield news. And if you're looking for something else to watch, click one of the videos you're seeing on screen right now. I will see you there. Also, a huge thank you to all the amazing channel members.